Acta non verba, deeds not words. This is the motto of the Merchant Marine, and they live up to it every day and in every threat environment. During peacetime, merchant mariners are assigned to vessels that primarily transport cargo and personnel. But during wartime, they can become an auxiliary of the United States Navy, called upon to deliver military personnel and supplies in the contested waters of conflict zones around the world. The Merchant Marine were codified into law in the first half of the 20th century, but the contributions of such mariners can be traced to the earliest days of the American Revolution. The utilization of domestic vessels and their crew for the purpose of national defense is an age-old practice in America, and it has always been essential to the success of our wider war efforts. The Merchant Marine Act, passed by Congress in 1936, formalized this cornerstone of military sea lift capacity. The Merchant Marine Academy was dedicated on September 30th, 1943, by President Franklin Roosevelt, who noted that the Academy serves the Merchant Marine as West Point serves the Army and Annapolis the Navy. Today, the Academy is one of the world's foremost institutions in the field of maritime education. During World War II, the Merchant Marines suffered tremendous losses and braved incredible danger to assist the war effort. But it would take decades for them to receive the recognition that they deserved. They were veterans, no different than the soldiers and Marines who served in that conflict, but they were not treated as such. The Merchant Marine, motivated by their deep love of country and noted for valor, gave as much as anyone. They lost more than 9,000 of their brothers at sea, killed transporting vital supplies. 12,000 mariners were wounded during the conflict, and 663 mariners were taken prisoner. The mariners were civilian volunteers with no military standing or government benefits, but they possessed an unusual variety of courage, and they fought for their country as valiantly as those in the armed forces did. In 1974, the Merchant Marine Academy became the first federal service academy to allow women to enroll. And in 2020, Congress passed the Merchant Mariners of World War II Congressional Gold Medal Act, finally bringing the proper recognition to an entire generation of mariners who gave so much for this nation. Now you'll hear directly from some of the mariners who served in the Second World War, braving the dangerous waters of the Pacific and Atlantic to bring our forces the supplies they needed for victory.
The Merchant Marine carries cargo in peace and war.
Merchant Marine is the worldwide ocean-based lifeline of world commerce.
Describe the United States Merchant Marine in 3 words: employment, education, and camaraderie.
I would describe the Merchant Marine in 3 words by identifying military supply chain. And I can even go a little further with regards to saying 1 word, and that is material, spelt with an I-E-L. And if you look up that definition, it describes over the course of the start of our great country, the United States, and many places around the world, the carriage of material is exactly war material to our troops on the front lines anywhere in the world.
I feel like that most of the people didn't understand what the Merchant Marine did.
It's something you don't have to question, because we've all been in, ironically, the same boat together, and we know what it's like, and we're all always there to help each other. And I really like that. I thrive on that.
The United States Critical Organization, I think, would be a top thing, or maybe a great choice, or a wonderful organization.
all of the civilian-owned naval vessels that are operating for a country. And in wartime, they are moving troops and supplies to where they're needed around the world.
My own career in the Merchant Marine was basically from the start of the Korean War in July of 1950, when I joined the Meredith Victory in Norfolk, through January of 1951, after the ship came back from our Korean service. I applied to the Merchant Marine Academy in 1946 because I couldn't afford to go to college. My dad had been an ordinary seaman and an able seaman all during the war, sailing on Liberty ships out of New York. So I knew of the Merchant Marine, and through my father had heard about the Merchant Marine Academy, and took the examination in April of 1946 up in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and passed. And that's how I ended up at San Mateo in California at the Merchant Marine Basic Cadet School.
I joined the Merchant Marine when I was 18 and a half and decided to join the Merchant Marine because my three older brothers were in the infantry. I didn't want to be in infantry like them. I wanted to try a new avenue. I felt being at sea, I'd never been at sea, I'd never been anywhere at 18 and a half, it would give me new visits of the world. I would travel to foreign countries, naturally during the war, with transporting essential goods to the war zone. And I would learn more about people in the world, and it would give me a vast experience for my future life. I went straight for the Merchant Marine for another reason. The Merchant Marine base, the U.S. Maritime Base, was based in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn. I was a Brooklynite, and I lived about 10 minutes from the base. And I figured, since my parents were very upset about my three older brothers being overseas, that at least if I got leave, I'd be able to come home and see them.
Well, to tell you the truth, my father wanted me to go to sea because I had asthma really bad when I was a child. Had a lot of attacks yearly. So he wanted me to go out to sea because he felt like I would be away from, any pollutants or pollen or anything like that. And he was a shipbroker by trade. He was a CPA, but he was also a shipbroker, and he knew the industry. My older brother had gone to Kings Point. We had 8 kids in the family, and we knew my father wasn't going to be able to afford to send us to college. King Point is a federal academy, so it was going to cost nothing. So he went there. I was going to enlist in the Army and take up a trade, and my father said, no, you're going to college. So the last minute, I applied to 2 colleges, Rutgers and Fort Schuyler. Fort Schuyler is New York Maritime College. It's a maritime college like Maine Maritime, Massachusetts Maritime, California Maritime, and Texas Maritime. Initially, I was there because, like I said, because my father pushed me into there. But once getting into it, and especially going to New York Maritime, I met so many good friends, and we were all together, even though we lost about half of the people from the time we started till we graduated. Because it's difficult. You're taking basically about 20 credits because you're getting a college degree plus a license in the Coast Guard. But the camaraderie was unbelievable. I mean, all my classmates helped me get through the school. It was difficult courses, and everybody, and that's what I like, everybody stuck together. If you needed somebody, they were there. And to this day, it's the same way.
I had made up my mind I wanted to go back to Australia and go to college. And the only way I could get back was to sail on foreign ships, because the United States would not let American women sail on American ships, and so I sailed on foreign ships. Actually, liked it so well, and I liked the sea so well, I just kept sailing. I couldn't get any ships that were going close to Australia, so I thought, well, I'll just take whatever I can, and maybe I'll be lucky and I'll finally get over there. But in the meantime, I loved what I was doing. I liked going to sea. The thing that bothered me was that I didn't like what I was doing going to sea. I didn't like having to work in the steward's department. So I saw that the radio operators had a much better life on board. And it was something that I could learn to do very easily, and I did. So I got the captain to teach me the Morse code, and then I started looking into taking my exams, first class radio operator and first class operator exams, and kept going up till I had taken them all.
In 10th grade in high school, when I was going to a city school in Baltimore, Maryland, I was introduced to the maritime industry, and I really enjoyed the fact that these large vessels go across the horizon from what your eye could see at sea, and they keep going and travel the world. I wanted to travel the world.
My purpose at the time when I joined the United States Merchant Marine was to earn enough funds for college education when I graduated from high school. I approached the company Likes Lines and the International Seamen Union, and they allowed me to work part-time on the ships and in the lofts of the company on the dock in Galveston, Texas. Salaries were very low at that time. In 1948, I graduated and started working full-time. But in 1941, the war came along, and any idea I had about college at that time went out the porthole. When the war started in 1941, I served from 1941 to 1950. In 1947, as a union rep, I started on my college education.
Well, I was 17 and I couldn't join the Marines, and I didn't have a birth certificate, and so the Merchant Marines became my choice because they would accept me with other kinds of proof that I was alive, and they would accept me at age 17. And so that's when I joined in 1944. In World War II, they were the main source of the movement of troops and the movement of supplies to the troops. For me personally, service in the Merchant Marines meant a learning experience for a kid that had grown up on farms and finally now was getting to see the ocean and other parts of the world. The service varied enormously. I had no contact with the enemy. I served in waters that were enemy waters, and I have medals to prove that. But I never heard a shot fired in anger, and I never saw a torpedo wing. But I still had a rather exciting life. I was on a tanker that delivered oil to Danzig in the middle of winter, in November. And it took us a week and a half to get the oil pumped out of the ship and into the tanks ashore. Going the other way, I was in Calcutta. The temperature outside was 130 degrees, and we had to take an acetylene torch and cut the bolts out of a valve, a steam valve, to replace it with a new one because it had gone bad.
I joined the Merchant Marine on my 19th birthday based on me having a commercial FCC license. That's all I needed. And then the next thing, I was assigned to a ship on my birthday, in 1936, and I'm 96 years old. I became a Merchant Marine radio operator because by accident, I went to a high school where the last course was to get an amateur license. I passed the theory, but failed the Morse code. I asked the teacher, where can I get more Morse code? He told me about a school PS20 that they gave Morse code, and not only did I get my amateur license, I got a commercial license where you needed to do 16 words a minute. And the next day, which happens to be my birthday, I was assigned to a ship, the Lawrence D. Tyson, a Liberty ship.
The importance of being a merchant mariner, in my view, is that it is an incredible, vital link of military service. Though we're citizens, though we're considered civilians, I should say, it is a crucial, vital link to connect the manufacturing cargoes produced here in our country, military cargoes, commercial cargoes, could even be the food necessary to maintain troops anywhere in the world. So it is a vital link.
To me, being a merchant mariner during the war was very important because we were transporting all the essentials to the troops in the war zones. And I think that we were the cog of the whole service system to win this war. It meant a lot to me to be there. One of my first trips, I took oil from Venezuela over to Europe. It meant a lot.
Nothing compares, though, to being in the engine room, just having left the Philippines and finding yourself on the edge of a typhoon. And I was in Black Gang, and down in the engine room, there was an inclinometer, and you could see the ship roll up to 47.5 degrees, and Liberty ships were supposed to capsize if they went to 48 degrees. It'd roll up to 47.5 and sit there and shake. And I mean, it would shake. And then it would roll back to the other side, 47.5, and again it would shake. And you could hear a sizzling in the engine room because of water coming down the smokestacks and sizzling when it hit.
The United States Mariner is the most highly technical and educated seaman on the face of the globe. What does it mean to be a merchant seaman? It means that he or she is helping the United States in its race to remain competitive in sea commerce service and keep our ships updated and ready when called upon to serve the military.
Well, you have to be cut out for the job. It's rough on a family life. I was fortunate. My wife stuck with me for 40 years now, you know, through thick and thin. I had some rough spots. You're away a lot. It's difficult, and it's got its ups and downs. I mean, I would suggest you have some other trade or something to fall back on, because you may be out of work. You know, they crew up these ships, and I've seen it through several conflicts, and then all of a sudden they lay them up and everybody's out of work. But it is a rewarding service, and right now most of our jobs are manning the MARAD ships, because we do it for less money, less crew than the government can do it or the Navy can do it, and we do it well. You know, in the 12 years I was on a pre-pro ship over in Guam, loaded and ready to go, part of a fleet of 4. And then I worked on fast sealift ships after Desert Storm and Restore Hope in the Mogadishu Somalia crisis. And you know, we were always able to get the mission done regardless of whether we had full crew or whatever, but we always moved the cargo where it had to go under a lot of adverse conditions. You need to deal with the personnel, you need to deal with the weather, you need to deal with the sea. There's so many variables you need to deal with.
Well, to be the Merchant Marine is a historical profession. Christopher Columbus was in the Merchant Marine. And it's necessary, it's part of homeland security in peace and in war.
I think it's one of the most wonderful things particularly for a young cadet. By the age of 18, after our first year at basic school, we're sent out, 1 or 2 of us, on an American merchant ship, and going around the world in 6 months, 2 years after the war had finished, being immersed with all sorts of natives of foreign lands, seeing all sorts of ports, seeing the more wonderful and the more horrible parts of the world. You come back with having been exposed not only to the world, but to rough and tough merchant mariners. You're no longer ensconced in the protection and cotton swathing of your family. It's really great education.
I would find out if they wanted to be engineers on board a ship, or did they want it to be mates? What kind of job on a ship would they like to do? Because that's a choice that they have to make to prepare for whatever job they're looking for. Most of the young men went and started out as ordinary seamen. Now, and those are the people who didn't know anything about a ship except that there was a front and a back and a middle. Only if they wanted to improve their livelihood on board, not to be just an ordinary seaman forever or work in the steward's department forever. Study and talk to the mates, talk to the engineers, and see which way you want to go. Were you a person that liked working on engines, which means that you work in the engine room, or would you just like to be a mate and sail as well, you start out as an ordinary seaman and work your way up until you have enough time to decide if you want to become an officer, and then you study. You don't have to stop and go to school. You can do it right on board the ship. And you can study and make a decision whether you want to go ahead and start taking your exams.
One of the most important things to us as merchant mariners is the recognition of what we have done in all the past wars and what we'll do in future wars. And it can't be forgotten. You know, we must remember it, the government must remember it, and the people. The people don't know who delivered the services, who delivered the weapons, who delivered the ammunition. I mean, during Desert Storm, we were delivering fuel, we were delivering ammunition, and we're sitting there at the dock unloading with missiles going over our heads.
Being in a merchant marine is an adventure. You see the world, you're part of a ship, you're making it go, you make it safe. I was in communications, and you're working with other people, everybody on the ship, you have to put up with storms and whatnot, and it's a very satisfying profession. The only thing is, it's like a traveling salesman. You don't go home every night.
If you become a merchant marine today, your experience would be a lot different. But also, some of it would be similar because inclinometers never change.
I would think if I spoke to anybody that was going into service, I think that it would be good for them to join the American Merchant Marine because it affords them the opportunity to go to sea and transport goods in peace and in war. But maybe in peace they could really be traveling the world and getting to know foreign countries and people and their habits of how they live and their culture.
Certainly is a wonderful career, whether it's something that you follow all your life or whether you use it as a basis for business or law or medicine. As I've told all of my kids and my grandchildren, the important thing is to get a basic education, and there's nothing in the world better than the Merchant Marine to round you out as a human being, I think, for at least a few years. And then whether you decide to follow it for a career or not is a personal decision. It's become very much more difficult now to follow it in the American Merchant Marine because when I was sailing, there were almost 800 American flag ships in the U.S. foreign trade. The last time I looked, there were 86 American flag ships in U.S. foreign trade. So the opportunities are not there in the commercial American Merchant Marine, but there are certainly all sorts of offshoots in commerce and in naval support ships, all sorts of opportunities in shipbuilding and allied industries.
I'm just so glad I did it. I liked it, I enjoyed it, I learned a lot, and it was just something I enjoyed. And I enjoyed it so much I kept doing it.
Without a doubt, your service, though considered to be civilian, is in service to our country. It is a necessary mode of transport that keeps our country as free as we are. This country was founded on maritime service, and I want to throw in again the word adventure. There is adventure, and there is absolutely, in regards to the oath of office, that you become a merchant mariner and carrying out logistical support for our military, it is dangerous.
They have grade A schools to educate the mariner once he becomes fit to join. And that will keep one getting to the top. I highly recommend to any young man or young lady who are prepared to come into an industry that's going to give them a long life with benefits, join the United States Merchant Marine.